All righty then. Good evening, South Africa. Good evening, Africa. Good evening, world. I trust that you had a wonderful day. We are continuing with our weekly conversations called The Real Dialogue, Conversations Changing the Continent. This is an initiative of The Real Village. The idea behind these conversations are in keeping with the mission of The Real Village, which is to reconstruct and empower Africa with love. And one of the things that we want to do, and we've seen that we are already doing with these conversations, is number one, to reconstruct how we look into success and how we look into social change and social engagement, and change the narrative where traditionally and historically those that have been helping Euro-Americans exclusively and poor Africans are only receiving. And so to basically create a movement, if you will, where Africans get actively, proactively, and strategically involved in solving the problems that we are facing as the continent. And that starts with, number one, creating our own heroes, because the truth is every generation, every people need a hero. And heroes are, to a great and large extent, a creation of their people. So this is the understanding behind this, and that's why we have these conversations, to celebrate the continent's change makers. And as I've mentioned before, we're not just celebrating here people that are successful. It is not difficult to see successful people. They are everywhere. The TV shows us. But we want people who are using their success to impact the continent in a practical way. People who are using their platforms, their education, their gifts, their talents to impact Africa, especially the least and the often forgotten and overlooked in Africa. So these are people that have a demonstrable love for Africa and her people who give their gifts, who give their resources, who give their talents to the empowerment of Africa. And today, I'm excited to be joined by such a person as we are ending our youth month, and this is an incredible young person. His name is Achumile, and he is joining us. And there he is, Achumile Majija, and an incredible gentleman that I'm about to have a conversation with. Welcome, Achumile.
Thanks, Ivu. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. And how's your day? How was your day today?
Actually, I had a workshop for like 6 hours. We're doing some cultural work with the Prudential group. So I was basically sitting on Zoom the whole day.
Sure.
Which was quite interesting because we've got breakout rooms as well now on Zoom where you can go and discuss what needs to happen. So yeah, it was a fruitful exercise. It wasn't hard work. It was more personal development things that I was doing, which is work related as well.
Sure. And of course, we're gonna touch this. You are not based normally here in South Africa, for your work, but because of COVID-19, you are still here, and but you've been still able to do your work, right?
Yeah, actually, I decided, I think the day they were closing the airport in Ivory Coast, I saw my neighbors leaving and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, they're closing the borders. So I was like, okay, let me pack my bags. I basically went to the airport without a ticket and everything was finalized when I got to the airport. And honestly, I think I've enjoyed working from home. It's not the easiest because normally on a given week, I'll be in 3 countries between Ivory Coast and Togo. Now managing things remotely and having to engage with my colleagues, it's been a challenge initially, but it's also been very fruitful because then you just make decisions much quicker. There's no time to wait.
Exactly.
A lot of things that were taking forever, like how we've had to transform digitally within a short space of time. It's things that we already planned, but they were probably in the next couple of months or next year. But everything had to happen within 2. So I think there are positives that we can learn from this pandemic.
Sure. And of course, as you know, many things to learn. When we spoke, I think last week we were speaking on the phone, and you were driving from home, from Umtata, and you told me that this has been the longest you've been at home, and in quite a while, and that has been made possible, of course, by COVID-19. That you are here at home, and that you got to spend more than a month or 2.
I've actually been here since March, so it's almost 3 months. And that's the longest in 10 years since I left in 2009 for my MBA. I've not spent this much, but it's been good actually. It's they needed it. So
Banjani Kai, how are they in Mtata?
They were well. So I decided that initially I was planning to go to Mtata anyway from day one. But when I landed, then the lockdown was announced, so I couldn't move. So when I got moved, then I've managed to go home just to see my folks and my brother and make sure that everything was in place. I was worried initially because everything looked like Wuhan, Mtata, like they were on level on day one. I was staying put at home. Normally I would be visiting people and catching up with our friends, but this time was really staying put and being with the family and being present. And I really enjoyed it. It felt good. Like, when you're waking up from home and you feel much more relaxed because you just know you're, and that's how it felt.
I'm glad, man. I know how important family is to you. And speaking about family, Achumile Majija, world traveling business executive, but it must have been started somewhere. Where were you born? And which schools did you go to? And talk to me a bit about who Achumile is.
Okay, Achumile, it dates back to 1984, right? When I was born. And the first few years, I actually lived with my grandparents in Joburg, in Springs. My grandfather on the maternal side, he was a priest in the Methodist Church. So I lived with them for the first 4 years and a bit. And then to a point where I said, I'm putting my foot down, I want to live with my parents. And I forced to move back to Mtata and to live with my parents. Went to normal schools, so I would walk to a Kwezi Community Primary School. And then later on, my parents thought I should get better education. But because I started my grade 1 when I was 5, every school they were trying to get for me would want me to repeat a class or a grade. I was allowed if I wanted to, but I was very clear I'm not repeating a class. So then from there, I went to Mbute. It wasn't Model C, but it was they had teachers from Model C, so it was a really normal school. And then my dad got transferred to Johannesburg with work, and myself. So the other 2 siblings, my sister and my older brother, they were already at university. So it was a decision for me and Anele to decide if we want to go to Joburg or not. He decided to go to Joburg and repeated a grade. I decided to stay at home with my mom. And then I went to a convent school, a Catholic school, actually. And same school my older brother and sister went through. And I think that's where things began for me in terms of exposure. It was one of the best schools in Mthatha back in the days. It's still the best schools actually now. They normally above 95% pass rate in matric. And I was, like you would imagine, I was quite involved in school, from student leadership in the SRC. I was in the Junior City Council. On weekends, I was on the youth program on UNITA Community Radio. So I was just out and about and trying to be a busy bee from a very early stage. And I was quite clear on what route I wanted to take for my career. I remember when I was in grade 7, which is standard 5 actually, I went to the only accounting firm in Mthatha, Ngongi, and I remember I spoke to to ask about the child accountancy career and what I would need to do to be one. And I was obviously very excited about it. I would be writing to SAICA, even in grade 8, I was writing to SAICA to get more. But honestly, what was driving me at the time, it was more the financial gains than anything else. And the truth came clear when I was at varsity, and I did BCom, Economics and Finance. And I was enjoying the eco side quite well. And then the finance, accounting, I love accounting. I've always loved accounting. I find it quite easy. But I then thought, I'm clear that I want to go to asset management in an investment space, even though I had a scholarship at the time from Vodacom, and they would have dictated that, okay, come work for us after you finish your degree. And but I didn't do that. So I used to do VEC work with Vodacom. And funny enough, that was not my first job, because I remember even when I was in high school, I went and worked at PEP for the December holidays to make some pocket money. Because I was just not in the business of always waiting for handouts from my parents. I also wanted to be a bit more responsible and drive my own freedom and my own independence. And then got into UPE. In fact, I went to VETS for the accounting school. And then obviously my results in matric were not the best, I know for sure. But VETS accepted me, but on a different program, which would not have led me to child accountancy. And then luckily there was a scholarship with Vodacom, which was taking me to UPE, and that's where I ended up. Funny, as much as my results in matric were not the best, but in varsity, that's where I proved myself. And even then, I started working there as well. I became a tutor. I remember I was a tutor for computer studies because I was just doing well in computer studies for some reason. And I was earning money. When there's exams, I'll be a invigilator and make some money and build some experience. And I was quite involved in student societies. So I was in ISEC, and I started from the bottom, and I became the president of ISEC in year. And then I also went to becoming the national support team for ISEC South Africa. But one thing about ISEC, it's the Association of International Students in Economics and Commerce. And I was like, but why are people not traveling? Why are we not, if we are supposed to be doing exchanges, why are we not? I've found an opportunity to go to Germany. And after that, we just opened it up for other people to also benefit from it, because we are getting students or people coming from outside into our university as part of ISEC, but there was no outward movement. So I would always say, okay, this is what is supposed to be happening here, but it's not happening. Let me make sure that it happens. And it was good, actually. I think I learned so much about leadership at university. And as much as I had less time to myself, but the pressure allowed me to do well in my studies because I knew how to prioritize. I think having a lot of free time would have made me relax on things. And that's probably why I didn't do as well in high school. But where I was quite busy in university, even in the faculty council, SRC, even house committees, I was just everywhere. I had, and it's funny, even me being voted into the SRC, I was not in the country then. I had gone on an exchange to Germany. It was September to March the following year. But whilst I was in Germany, then they voted me in. And when I came back, I stepped into the role in my final year. And even then I was clear that, okay, I will continue with my honors if I don't find a job, or I'll get a job and then do my honors part-time. And I applied like everyone else. And fortunately, companies would used to come to UPE to recruit. I think I was shortlisted for most of the companies that I had applied for. But the one that stood out the most for me was Old Mutual. They had a graduate program where you rotate around every 6 months, and we're only looking for 6 people nationally. And that's the one I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for this one. If it comes through, then so be it. And even then, got into Old Mutual. I didn't like the rotations. They were purely insurance, boring. People who've worked there for 20, 30 years and tell you are as young as my last born. Like people do those things. But I was clear that I don't find that side of the business exciting. So I wanted to be on the investment side. And little me was walking around the corridors looking for the head of departments for those divisions that I was interested in and interviewing them and for them to sell the role to me or to sell a rotation to me in their departments. And the investment side was never included in the rotations of the graduate program. But I was the first one to make sure I get into that space. And it started as a rotation. Before I knew it, I was out of the program and they wanted me permanently to stay and not move, which was for me. And then with that said, I was then, it was a Sanlam investment, actually, they're looking for people. And on the investment side at Old Mutual, I was on the fund of funds side. So we were putting a portfolio of funds, but made up of different asset managers, and Sanlam was part of it. And I got along with the team from Sanlam Investments, and they offered me something, which was investment of strategy, and I liked it. I liked it because it was more varied and wide and open. But then I think 2 years into the role, I decided I want to go study full time and do an MBA. It was either.
Let's hold it there. Let's hold it there. You know, what I noticed is that we've touched almost your work life, and I want us to go back to that because that makes so much of what you do right now, and as you change Africa. But let me push you back, and to the family side and the childhood. So tell me, had it not been, you know, the corporate side and finance, what do you think it would have been? I'm asking this because one of the people that I spoke to said, I think I could be a priest.
So it's funny. So, growing up in a Christian household where both your grandfathers are priests. So my dad's, on the paternal side, he was a priest in the Anglican church. And then on the mother's side, it was in the Methodist church. And they were everyone knew them because they've been in the field for a while. And naturally, I became an altar boy. Anything I with. So I would be this short boy moving around with priests and just attending stuff.
Altar boy, which Methodist or
Anglican, obviously, because I'm married, right? So obviously we're going to the Anglican church. But funny enough, I still enjoy going to the Methodist during Easter. As young as I was, I just enjoy the drama that you get in Methodist church. And it's funny because when I started doing computer studies, even in high school, every time I would be typing my CV, whenever they say type something, I would type my CV. And I would type BA theology, everything at theology, up to PhD level. And I was like, actually, I think I'm called. I think I'm called, and the purpose is greater than myself.
Yeah.
But then that has since changed because I think I'm called into business. So let me be the face of God in the business arena, and those things are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. So I think the values that come from a strong Christian background, or even any other religion, but I'm talking about the Christian background, that's where I'm from, it lays certain values in my system that can be applicable in the corporate environment. And we know what's happening these days in the corporate space. And having a great foundation does make a difference in how you do things. And so I think that background really helped me. And then my parents as well, though, were clear on me carving my own path. As both in terms of spirituality, but also in terms of financial freedom. So when I was living in grade 2, my mom had bank cards for all of us. and we would save every month whatever we get given, only to spend it later in the year when we go on holidays in December. And that made me responsible. I valued money from an early stage, but also backed with a solid Christian foundation. It helped.
Sure. And oh, we've got somebody says, Lungelwa Dlulane.
Oh, hi.
My old, funny enough, I know Lungelwa was my neighbor in Port Elizabeth, and
Oh, wow.
and her son and mine were best friends when we were staying there. A very friendly lady. And hello, Lungelwa. Thank you.
People will meet in Devon when we were doing holidays with our families.
Oh,
funny enough.
Sure. And so I've got to speak on this, Achumile. As I was speaking to, and of course, having known you as well for this number of years, one of the things that is very clear is how important family is to you and your family. And of course, I can't speak about your family without talking about big losses that you went through, and your elder sister, Osisioli, Miki, and your dad. Were you, talk to me about that. Were you at varsity for both of them? I know you were at varsity when your sister passed away, and your dad.
So my dad passed first. I think it was 2002. So It was funny. It was after September holidays. And my mom had taken me back to university. So she had driven me to university. And then she left. And I think 2 days or 3 days later, someone called me when I was still I think I was in the computer labs, and said, "Oh, your uncle is here." And you just get a sixth sense. I said, "Why is he here?" Because I don't have I have no appointment with him. No, he was staying in PE. He was a priest in PE, and I had no appointment with him at all. I was like, "No, I don't want. Tell him I'll call him later." And they insisted that you need to come back to rest. And finally, I didn't even go straight to my room. I went to a friend's room. Usianda Malkas was also a family friend. And funny enough, I found my uncle there. He was not even in my room. It was in my friend's. And then he didn't say anything, but he says, "Oh, he got a promotion. He's going somewhere. So he wants me to come for the celebration at his house." They were staying in Woma. And I kept on resisting, and he wasn't going to have any of it. I was like, "Okay, that's fine, I'll come." And on the way, I kept on saying, "Just tell me what's going on." And I already knew at its death, and I was worried because it could have been my mom on a car accident because she had just dropped me in PE and went back to Mtata. It could have been my sister because she had just given birth in September that year, or it could have been my dad. And I'd seen families where the mothers passed first, and I wasn't, not that I wanted my dad to pass on, but I didn't want my mom at that point in time. So when I went to his house, there were a lot of priests and my uncle's friends, our Bishop Siwa and the likes. And he then told me, because I could then realize what's going on. And then I said, "Okay, can I call my family?" And I called my family, then everyone was crying. I was like, "Okay, Malume, take me back to varsity, I'm okay." And it was just a shock. And I think it took me a while to process. It took me a while to process, but I also was at peace because my dad did everything that we wanted from him. I think he had played a role. But the sad part was for him not to see what the fruits of his labor, right? He was one person who encouraged me to do whatever and be whatever that I wanted to be. Even when I came to Joburg and decided, no, I'm not going to be at vets, a week later, and I'm like, I'm going back to PE. My mom was upset about it. And my dad was like, whatever Achumile decides, it's probably well calculated. Let's allow him to be.
Yeah.
And Vice Paulette, like, he was really chilled, really, really chilled. And he was quite funny. He was funny in a lot of ways. He entertained us. And whenever we wanted something at home as kids, I would go to him first. I would say to him, "Mama, say Vumile." You must say yes as well. Then go to Mama and say, "Say Vumile." So it was never, and he was quite chilled. That he was really quite chilled. And I've got fond memories. And I think when I look back, and it's the time we spent with him was sufficient.
Sure.
It would have been better, been more. But I've never felt like I have no father since he left.
Yeah.
I know that he is there, he knows what's going on. But he played his role, and my belief is always that when your time comes, it's your time.
Sure.
Even if I'm sitting in a chair or taking high risk sports, if my time, my thing, what's this? My departure on earth is predetermined. That's me. But obviously, I'm not going to fast track that. Yeah, it makes me appreciate things the way they are.
Sure.
I think the one then that I struggled mostly with was when my sister died. I was quite she was the first one, and I was the last one. And she had a similar personality as my dad, funny enough. And me and her and my dad were the darker species in the family, and my other two brothers are lighter, like my mom. Yeah. So we got along quite well. And she was planning her wedding that year. We talk about stuff, and suddenly she got hospitalized.
Sure.
And nothing serious about it. Sure. But even how I found out that when I was still in the computer labs, even that one, I was actually invigilating. Wow. And a cousin of mine called me, and he assumed I knew.
Yeah.
He called me and said, "Aibo, I just heard this news, that AZP." And he said, "Oh, that your sister has passed." So that was a shock. I think I didn't know what to do with myself, but I just ran out of the computer lab and went to my room. And fortunately, my cousin was in town that day, and she also came. And I called her, she already knew, and she came immediately. I think it hit me hard the most because her daughter was probably 2. She was 2 years old. Very young. Whenever I looked at her, I would just cry because I felt that she would never know what it means to have a mother, and I felt sorry for her. But now she's grown up to be more mature. She's so independent, and she understands that her mom is not around, and she looks like her. Like, it's so funny. Yeah. How she thinks and the things that she says. It's really her mom living through her. Sure. And I think that has brought me more strength, because I think when they say time is a healer, time heals. It definitely did that with me. And I think it was also more difficult for me to deal with her death because of the impact it had on my mom. My mom was distraught when my dad passed away, but it's nothing compared to what I saw when my sister passed. She was in and out of hospital, and she's diabetic. So, and I guess when a parent loses a child, it's different than losing a spouse. And to see her go through that, and the entire family, but no one was talking about it. Everyone was dying internally by themselves, but no one was sharing that. I think it was difficult, but I was happy to have friends who I would talk to openly and share what was going on. So I think that's where I'm at.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I see. Unzuki Nombembe. I am here, Jola.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you must know this one, Patudi.
Oh, I worked with Patudi in Old Mutual. We were in the graduate program together.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So let's just check another one that perhaps is Violeta Badi giving heart to the. All right, let's definitely come back to the work that you do. Of course, when I interjected earlier on, you were about to share your journey. You decided to go and study and do your MBA. And man, you could have gone anywhere. You could have stayed in the country, but you decided to go to the UK, Leeds. What's up with that?
Okay, let me take you a step back, actually. So there was, so I used to be, because it's interlinked. I used to be in prison ministry in Cape Town, where we used to go to Paulsmoor and speak to juveniles. And
just before you do that, I know we didn't plan this, but there is someone that is joining us here, Reverend Benenge Monga.
Wow.
Reverend Benenge.
What do you look like? You got COVID.
You enjoyed.
I can't hear you.
We can hear you.
I've got
the connection, the power is the connection is quite poor. So I hardly can hear you guys. I'm trying some other methods as well. Hi, Achumile.
Hey, how are you? How's things?
Very well. Thank you so much, Sivu, for the opportunity. I don't know if you guys can hear me properly on the other side.
We can hear you perfectly, and I wanted us to tell you. I wanted you to tell us a bit about Achumile. You know, things that he would not tell us about himself, and I know you've known him much longer. Actually, you introduced me to Achumile. Tell us more about who Achumile is.
I'll say three things about Achumile. Number one, Achumile is highly giving. And when he gives, he does not make noise about it. And he always has this heart to give back to communities, especially the impoverished communities. He has this essence of wanting to motivate and to inspire young people, especially coming from disadvantaged areas. Number two, Achumile is very charismatic. He's a typical person from the Transkei. If you know people from the Transkei, they love standards. They love to explore, you know, so he's very charismatic when it comes to that. So you'll see him, he likes these clothes, you know, he wants to be smart all the time. That is Achumile for you. Thirdly, and I think most important, he's a committed Christian who has surrendered his life in service to God and to his people. So adventurous as he is, his faith keeps him settled to a better prospects and a better future. So Achumile has done tremendous things in a very young age. He's always the youngest. If you go to the companies that he has worked for, if you go to organizations that he's been part of, like BMF and others, he will always be the youngest. So that has been Achumile for you, a highly giving person. But I'm still waiting for my check myself.
What? You're still waiting for his check?
Sivu, I'm so sorry. I can't hear the conversation between him and Achumile. And I think I might just not do justice to any questions that you might ask any further. I hope you can forgive me.
That's okay. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you so much. And I'm going to take you out of the studio. Thank you so much. And how was that? I know we didn't speak about that.
I know.
Achumile?
I wasn't expecting that one.
I know.
Yeah, but we go all the way back in varsity. I used to tease him for being too serious, and he turned out to be a priest after.
Yeah. Look, but he said so many things that I know are true about you, and I know that you would not say those things about yourself, and that's why I thought it's best to get somebody that knows you. And like I said, he knows you way longer than I've known you. Actually, he introduced me to you and said, "Sivu, you've got to meet Achumile. You've got to meet Achumile." You know how he speaks. You know, he gets in animated. Yeah. But you were telling me about the journey then, prison ministries, and talk to me about that.
So this one particular Saturday, it was a Saturday, June 16 that year. It was 2008. We had gone to Paulsmoor for Youth Day, and like we normally do on Saturdays, and we had a celebration this time for Youth Day. And it was important for me to be involved in prison ministry because I saw my peers, people my age, who could have been anything they wanted to be, but circumstances beyond their means, they ended up in prison. And mine was to give hope and bring hope to them and to show that it's possible, and not for them to hear from a 50-year-old who says their lives were different, but to show them that someone had to believe in me for me to be where I'm at, and for them to hear from a young person. But that day, when I got home, I suddenly had a spine, like a back problems, like serious back problems. But I ignored it. Then I went to work on the Monday and I just couldn't continue. and I drove myself to a hospital for scans. And I could see my entire life. I could see the next steps whilst I was in the emergency room. Next thing, I could see myself being admitted. Then the next thing, it was MRI scan. And I actually cried when they put me in the MRI scan. Those are the ones where they used to put like a cylinder, and it felt like a and the next thing, I'm being admitted, and my spine is collapsing, all sorts of things. And for me, I took it as an attack. I thought it was a spiritual attack for the lives we were winning in Baltimore and the work that we're doing as Christians. And I was not going to sit down and not fight. And when the doctor wanted to operate on me and said one of my vertebral bones was collapsing. But because I had my own beliefs, we had an all-night prayer with a couple of my friends where we prayed against this operation. But if it's God's will, let it happen. And the Monday I went to the doctor, he was struggling with my medical aid, and they were like, they don't see why I should do an operation. And they were refusing. And he wanted me to convince them. And I was like, listen, I know you're running a private practice. Similar to how I've got targets at work, you've got your own targets monthly. So don't increase out of your targets to meet your budgets. I'm going to get second opinion. And I went to another doctor at UCT, and he said there's no need. Then I went to another neurosurgeon specialist in Stellenbosch, actually. And he also said there was no need for this operation. And I told the other doctor, I'm not going to do it. And every other doctors recommended that I work from home and use a support and neck brace, and I wasn't allowed to drive. So I was 3 months at home, but working remotely. So this COVID 3 months is nothing for me. But I was 3 months at home back then. And in that 3 months, I managed to apply for a scholarship to go do my MBA. And I managed to finish my honors thesis because I was studying at UCT at the time as well. I finished my honors thesis, which I passed on cum laude. And all of this was me being productive, staying at home. But then I really connected with God. You know, when you just flip open the Bible and it leads you to a scripture that's relevant to you. And it was like that every day. And I realized why I had to slow down and why what happened to me happened for a reason, because I thought my life was going on and forgetting about God. And I was losing touch and the connection. So that time, the 3 months, it was for him to speak to me and be clear on what he wanted me to do, because I applied for the scholarship and I got it. Like everything just happened so fast. But if you know business schools, they normally, people need to apply quite early. And my scholarship came in like in the last quarter of 2008. So most schools already made their selections. And I applied at Leeds, and also because I was going to do an MBA, they didn't want to pay for the full scholarship because it was double or triple the price of a normal master's. So luckily Leeds gave me a Dean scholarship as well. And I took that, and the rest is history. And that's how I ended up at Prudential, because they were recruiting at business schools. And I applied, and you know, there are times when you apply for something and you feel confident about, but with the ones that I tend to get the most are the ones where I was not confident about. Because even with the Prudential one, the first interview was telephonically, and then I had to then go to an assessment center in Hong Kong. One say that was stupid of me, if you know what's happening these days. But off I went to Hong Kong, having not met anyone from Prudential. Everything straight to my hotel room. I have not seen anyone from Prudential. I could have been trafficked without knowing. Next day, did my interview, my assessment center, an all-day session. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter, I won't get it. At the end of the day, the experience was worth it for me, and I've never been to Hong Kong before, so I must just enjoy the city. And I had an offer anyway at the time, because I was going to join ABSA Private Bank, so I wasn't worried about being unemployed. And when I was checking out the next day, a lady who was part of the interview panel from Singapore, our Singapore office, she then said, "Oh, it was great meeting you. See you soon." And okay. I didn't want to get excited. Anything is possible. And that's how I ended up at Prudential, actually. So I got in at Prudential doing risk, which was totally different from what I had done before. But it was nice in the sense that it was just after the economic crisis. So most banks were putting controls in place around risk management, and like the Basel II we were doing Solvency II. So I got into that project to build a framework in response to the economic crisis, which was quite interesting because you were then dealing with the rest of the business, like being exposed to our Asian business and to our US business, which was very good when it started. It got to a point where I felt this is not me. And I think I could have done better if I go home. But when I was ready to leave, then there was an offer in our Poland office, and we had just started the Poland business to go be chief of staff to the CEO. I think that's how then things jumped 3 or 4 steps ahead of me when I went to the Poland business. Everyone was against it. My friends, my family, they were like, why Poland? And everyone had their perceptions about racism and so on. And I was determined to give it a try. And I was even telling myself, if it means me stepping back, taking 2 steps backwards in order to propel myself like 5 steps ahead, I will definitely do it. And I wasn't gonna, any negative views or opinions about me moving to Poland, I never entertained. And it happened to be the best time of my life when I was in Poland. And what I know now in the Prudential business, having been with the Prudential before I moved to Poland for like 2 years, I could raise the risk experience, and the Poland year that I had was the best because it was more strategic, and it was a new business that we were building from scratch. And I had one of the best CEOs to work with, Abhishek Bhatia, who I learned so much from, and he involved me in everything. And it was great that he was also a non-Polish speaker, so we needed each other, and we worked on things together, and he exposed me to everything.
Thanks, man. Thanks for that. And we have Tibucho. Always great hearing about you, Achumile. You've never been short on helping out freely. Remember him?
Yes, I know Tibucho.
Yes, yeah. And then we've got a question for you. Achumile, what would you say are some of the things that you did personally to become the young success that you are, number one? And number two, secondly, in which part or aspect or area of your success would you say this was God's favor?
Okay, the second question, I think I'll answer that first. There is nothing special, really nothing special that I've done to put me where I'm at right now. It could have been anyone. And that's why I don't take it for granted and think I'm successful compared to other people. I see myself as being a vessel, and my life being a testimony, but not for my glory, but for people greater than myself. I've seen God's hand in everything that I've gone through, and in every encounter, even when I thought things looked bleak, but I was always focusing on the learnings and what I would get out of it. What was the first question?
Yeah, the first question was, what would you say are some of the things that you did personally to become the young success that you are?
Yeah, so first of all, I knew that I needed to have the right qualifications, because you need to have qualifications to be where you want to be. And then secondly, I needed to be inquisitive and to make sure that I network widely. And I knew I had to do things beyond the work environment. So that's why I joined the BMF, the Black Management Forum. And even when I joined the BMF, I wasn't going to accept things as they are. I felt it wasn't relevant for me personally as a young professional. And the things that I was dealing with as a young professional were different from what a 50-year-old manager was dealing with. But I wasn't going to wait for the BMF to find a platform for us. So I was one of the guys who founded the Young Professionals in the Western Cape, and I became the founding chairperson. And I wanted to run programs that speak to my own development. So I was always looking out for development opportunities and always checking out what's happening. I would be attending youth conferences to expand my network. And I was clear that I didn't want to be a specialist of any kind. I was clear on being a general manager or even running an organization. But I then knew that my 4 years of experience were not sufficient. Then the MBA would make me more strategic, or at least think more strategically. And then after that, I was like, instead of running for money and coming to South Africa and live a lavish life in Joburg and be under pressure, let me chase the cube and walk to the office in London and stay in a small 1-bedroom whilst getting international exposure, because I was clear on the sacrifice that I needed to make. But what was important for me is having the right attitude, being a go-getter, and just not giving up. Because those who know me for sure, they will tell you I'm one person who doesn't take a no for an answer. Even in my previous role in Ghana, I was like, hey, it's every small hole you find, you want to enter. There is no, you don't take chances. And that's just me. I just don't believe to be told that things are not possible. Even the scholarship I applied for, it wasn't because I had A's or had the qualifications they were looking for. Me, I knew that I needed to apply. If they give me a chance to come for an interview, then that's in my hands. So I never looked at the barriers to entry as a way for me not to do something. I've always said, okay, I'm going to challenge that requirement.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Nondomisa Miataza says, so many success experiences at a young age. Well done. A quick one. And now, of course, you are based in Cote d'Ivoire. And how is it there, man? Don't you miss us? And tell me the experiences, the culture. How was the experience? I mean, you went straight, before then you were where? Ghana, right?
So I was London, Poland, then back to London, then did a small stint in Kenya, back to London, then Ghana. But once I was in Ghana, I did Nigeria as well, in both countries when we started off in Nigeria. Yeah. How was it like
in Cote d'Ivoire?
So, you know, I've always wanted Cote d'Ivoire. So I was supposed to be in Ghana, first of all, for 12 months. It ended up being 4 years. 4 years.
You even won an award there.
On my last year, that's why I had to stay for 4 years and then to win the award. But it's and I had gone to Ivory Coast on weekends just to see how the place is like and if I could live there. And I would drive around, look at places to live. And I knew that we were looking for a business in Ivory Coast. So I was preparing myself. And the nice thing about me, I always tell the decision makers upfront what I'm interested in. So I'm not going to I'm not going to wait to be identified. I stick my hand out and say, oh, this and this is happening. I'm actually interested. And so Ivory Coast we were talking about Ivory Coast for 2 years before I moved. And it just happened that the deal finalized last year.
Sure.
But even then, when the deal finalized, everyone knew, or at least my Africa CEO knew that I was going to Ivory Coast, but no one was clear on my role. Sure. And I crafted my own role. I sent them a role and said, this is what I want to do. And I put on my own KPIs and the whole performance management matrix. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So I think one of the things that helped is to be clear what you want to do, but where you want to get to next. And also how I've developed my career, I needed to make sure that I cover most functional areas in the business so that when I run the organization, I've got a bit and pieces of everything. So I've got a bit on strategy, I've got a bit on ops, I've got a bit on risk and governance, and I've got a bit on strategy, and now I'm purely on the commercial side. And that's how I want to understand the business. And I'm starting now to understand the actuarial side of things and the finance side of things so that I'm well-grounded. So I know what I want to achieve, but I don't want to fast-tracked into those roles without the right experiences or the right exposure. So it's important for me to cover and do full circle before I go to the roles that I want to. And to answer your question on Ivory Coast, I actually like it. It's been there's a lot of expat community in Ivory Coast, especially from France or European countries. And it's actually a gem that's not understood in Africa. We don't think of Francophone Africa, but now it's clear that, okay, I've covered the Anglophone, let me cover the French side of things, so that if I come back to South Africa, I could serve an organization that covers Africa, regardless of the base in Africa. And the people have been very helpful in the office. I've managed to find a couple of friends, be it South Africans or locals, and it's just a lovely place to live. Good quality and good food too, because they've got all the French cuisine. So it's been good for me. But my French is bad. Actually, before I moved, I was learning quite a lot. But once I move there, the guys are adapting to me, but obviously I want to learn the language. It's something that I want to do. But you find now even the drivers speaking English and so forth. And unlike us, they are taught English in school. We're not taught French. So they have a bit of English understanding, but obviously I want to come back fluent in French because it's good for my own development.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Look, I don't know where time went, but I've been enjoying this. I've been enjoying, and the interaction has been incredible with those that are viewing, with our viewers. Okay, let's quickly come. I mean, one of the things that come through anybody that interacts with you, and I think even our viewers can attest to this, is your love for God, your spirituality, your faith, and not only were you reared in a family, a Christian home, but it looks like you have, as Reverend Benenge mentioned earlier on, you've decided to own this for yourself. So the God of your parents, I can safely say, has become the God of Achumile. And of course, it's not always easy to carry our spirituality and our faith into the boardroom. Have you found your faith to be a liability, sometimes preventing you from doing things that would be so appealing and tempting to do, or have you actually found it as an asset?
I think it's been an asset for me, and it's even more. I think I was fortunate to move to West Africa. In Ghana, if you go to a meeting, they open with a prayer. Events, they open with a prayer. So it's a very spiritual community. And it made me reference God in every opportunity I found. So if someone would want some favors behind the doors, I'll be like, let's pray about it. And I would be playing, and I'll be using their own culture to stop whatever means they would want me to go and deviate from my own values. And sometimes in some offices, you've got prayer groups, which I would join from time to time. And that has helped me actually, because I always tell people that my numbers, they don't come from me. My numbers come from above. And honestly, I'll get to month end and I'll be praying for month end for numbers to be better than what I expect. And not that I'm under budgeting, but it's the last 4 years in Ghana, we constantly beat our budgets, our plans, and we grew our income line that I was in charge of from nothing to over 40% in 3 years. So, and there's nothing extraordinary. It's, being in the right place at the right time, but also bringing the right people along with you.
Sure.
And then be rooted in prayer. That has helped. Honestly, I think I would have panicked if it wasn't for my faith and for me to look at situations and think this is meant for me. And either you learn or you win. There is no losing whatsoever. And the way I always approach things, that whatever that comes your way, it's meant for you. And it's not for anyone else to carry that cross for you. You need to carry your own cross. Whilst carrying the cross, the lesson in it. Nothing comes to you if you're not ready for it, and if you can't go through it, and if you can't handle it. And that's how I approach things.
Sure. All right. Thanks, man. Thanks. We still, Tembisa says, good vibes. Lungelo shares some experience. Even when we were kids, Atumza would convince you of something he believed needed to happen. Now look how far that determination and discipline has taken him. Mariri, hey Jex, and Siwe Kakela fan is listening. So proud of you. Good vibes.
Thank you.
You know her, right?
I know, yes.
Okay. Now, Africa. The second thing, I spoke about your relationship with your father, the Heavenly Father, as one of the things that always comes through in interacting with you, and of course your love for Africa. Tell me, what is your dream for Africa, about Africa? What is the one thing that, about Africa, that keeps you awake at night? And what can we do to get it there? What are the threats to us realizing, that dream that you personally have for Africa? I
think that the one thing that seems to be a challenge in Africa is the issue of leadership. I don't want to say resources or this or that, because everything boils down to leadership. Corruption boils down to leadership. We've got good leaders. I won't lie. But then there's also some elements in the system that are not good for us.
Sure.
And also with the leadership that's in place, if you look at the gap between the current leadership and the young people, which is us, there is no connection whatsoever. There's a disconnect. And I'm worried with how all that wisdom and knowledge that is shared by our forefathers is not being passed to us. And not being passed because there's an element of not being wanted, because people are watching their security, right? They are watching, they want to be comfortable, and they don't, the minute you bring young people, people think you are there to take their jobs.
Sure.
But then there's an element of young people who are only focusing in their own development on what's in it for them, and not caring about how can we make the situation better. So now I'm really for young people taking an active role in driving the socio-economic factors in Africa, where we're not waiting for things to be done for us, but us taking the baton and carrying it forward, where we are involved in reforms, we're involved in the constitutional frameworks of the country, and even understanding what the frameworks are. And then also a leadership that is fresh, that would decide how to take Africa forward. In Africa that trades with itself, in Africa where everything benefits Africans before anyone else. Yes, we can't do this on our own, but then I think there's so much that can be done within the continent. And also just for us to explore Africa as Africans, even if not for doing anything significant, but even on a tourism point of view, or even to go work in another African context, because you learn so much in other African countries, and you get to appreciate your own country as well. So I'm really looking forward for a global African village where it's easy to move around, where it's easy to share knowledge and skills, where it's easy to trade with each other, but where it's easy for us to transfer the leadership, knowledge, and wisdom to the young people and start involving young people in the day-to-day decision-making of the country.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I think you've actually answered this question in how can we turn Africa in order to have people like you? I think you've actually answered that question there, right there.
Yeah, really, everywhere I've been, like I said, there's nothing unique I've done. There's nothing extraordinary I've done. But I've been surprised with the number of people I meet who are responsible, who are passionate to change Africa. There's so many forums you attend, the young global leaders, young global shapers of the West, where you meet other young Africans passionate about the change in Africa. There's the Chozel, which is more targeting young people within the Francophone space. And it's platforms where we come and deal with current issues and how we can be a solution to those issues. And I think the problem, what I find with us young people, we all want to work in silos. Even in Africa, you've got an idea, but I want to shine on my own, instead of collaborating and joining forces. And because you want to work in your small corner, then the impact is not felt as much. But if you collaborate and work across borders, even in your own community, and work with each other and not wanting to shine, then there's so much more that can be achieved.
Collaborations. After all, it takes the village to raise a child. And speaking about taking the village, look, it takes a village to raise a child. There must have been those people that have contributed immensely to who Achumile is, that village. And this is an opportunity for you, Achumile, to reflect on those people and even mention them. That teacher, that pastor, that mother, where, in the same street where you grew up. Those people that, or that leader that you mentioned, your Polish CEO. Those people that have contributed immensely to who you are. Do you want to mention some of them?
Honestly, I've always struggled with that question. I wouldn't be able to single anyone out. I think what I tend to do is to learn a bit of everything from everyone else. So there's always a piece that I take from everyone to build who I am. There is no one person that I want to model myself against. There are good characteristics and good attributes from each person I've encountered, and I take those into. But obviously, I'm even much more inspired by people who come out of nothing and make themselves a success. People, I remember I met in Belgium, a lady who was kidnapped by the ISIS terrorist, raped and everything else. And now she's a lawyer. Young, she was bent in the face, all sorts of things, and she tried to escape a number of times. But she's doing things now herself. She never looked at what was going on in her life, but she was able to not giving up and continuing. So I think people that have those struggles or backgrounds where out of nothing, out of dust, they've created clay, out of dust, they've built monuments, and they've taken the baton. And I think that's what inspires me the most. But with that said, there are individuals, there are a lot of people, even yourself, that there's something that I've learned from, which I tend to apply. So it would be unfair to mention one or two people, including my family matter. There's just so much that you learn, and I learn even today, even from a young child, you can learn so much.
Sure. Thanks, Atu. Legacy. How would you want to be remembered, and what are you still hoping to accomplish? Any dreams, plans that you are willing and able to share? And basically, how would you want Africa to remember this son of theirs, Achumile?
Honestly, when I wake up today, like every morning, it's me going out to say I want to do what's supposed to be done anyway. Like when I say there is nothing extraordinary that I've done, it's things, what I do, it's stuff that I think should be normal. Anyway, there's nothing extraordinary about it. And I don't want to be a celebrity. I think so you find that you live your life doing what you're doing best, but you're not realizing the impact that you are making for other people, and people are watching you. And that's why then you need to constantly be at watch at how you live your life and how you guide people. So really my job is to change one life at a time. Even if I go speak and address students or university scholars at high schools, it's not for me to win souls or to change everyone's life. If there's just one soul who takes what I say and they make it and learn from it, that makes a difference in my life. And also then the bigger picture, or linked to my goal, when I come back to South Africa, because I will come back. One thing I'm really passionate about is to drive financial inclusion. I'm passionate about this thing because a lot of our people, especially the marginalized, they are not actively involved in the financial markets in any way or form. We don't think of the long term, or we don't know how to access the vehicles that will drive the long term and the savings for ourselves. So it's more for me to come and create an awareness or education around financial inclusion, but also come up with financial solutions and instruments that they can get into. There's something that we did in Ghana for financial inclusion, where we had over 1 million customers who bought our insurance using airtime, but they don't fill the airtime. Every time on a daily basis, we take about 10 cents of their airtime, and you get covered for the month for as long as you use your airtime. And that would necessarily, and people buy airtime all the time, right? They've got sellers too in most cases. They wouldn't necessarily come and buy insurance because they think it's unaffordable. But the fact that we've made or solutions that were accessible and easier and convenient for them, then it made life easier for them. So I really think the rural areas in South Africa, there is so much we can help with the long-term savings attitude for people. And I think that is something that I would really want to contribute towards and help towards when I come back. And then the other aspect that I would want to be involved in when I come back, it's around governance. I think a lot can be done as far as governance is concerned, especially in corporate South Africa. And then you get concerned when you see the same faces running the boards in the country, and then the same people who get tainted in one board, they re-emerge to run another board. And not the young people who not necessarily going to be paid to be board members, they can share to being board members for them to learn and build the skill base that's required. Because people just think you rock up and you say 2 or 3 comments based on the board packs and that's it. But then they don't understand the responsibility that is been given to them. And I just think I could do so much more around governance, and also help young people understand governance and how they can play in that space as from an early age.
Sure. One last question, Atu, and this is another thread, another theme of your life, and as our friend, our mutual friend, Reverend Benenge mentioned earlier on, that you are a giving person, not just at a personal, friend-to-friend level, but you enjoy giving to organizations. I remember when I first asked you to be part of the advisory board of the Real Village. You did not hesitate, and we are grateful for that. And but tell me, how important is it for young successful Africans to take the time and the effort to deliberately give to those who are not yet where they are, and to give their time, to give their skills, especially to the less privileged, and not just have our success benefit us and us alone?
I think the minute you understand that your success is not your own success, like you said, it takes a village to make you. It takes someone to believe in you to be where you're at. And for as long as you understand that your purpose is greater than yourself, then it becomes easier for you to reach out and see where you can be of value. Making a difference and changing someone's life for the better gives me the greatest satisfaction. And also it's effortless, because if you're doing it for people to look at you or to give you prompts or to worship you, then it becomes unsustainable. But
Sure.
when it comes effortlessly and natural, and you genuinely want to make a difference in someone's life, then that's what makes the difference. I think one of the things I was very clear on was, I don't want to be that friend who's successful alone or who's achieving alone in my group of circle or in my neighborhood. But how do I take the people that I'm with, and what value can I add in my friendship circles? Because if we are going to be discussing women, cars, and everything in our friendship circles, then we would have failed as young people. And all that education that we've been given, because an opportunity, it could have been someone else, but you were chosen, and you grew up the way you grew up, or you were privileged enough to have the opportunities that you've had. But then how do we then use those opportunities to bring other people on board and to help those people as well? And that's what I always think about. And when there's an opportunity for me to bring people on board to come and help and serve, I do that. When we started the BMF, I called upon the young professionals, a couple of my friends who were professionals, and said, guys, let's do this. And as part of our mandate as young professionals then was, then how do we mentor the students so that when they become professionals, they don't make the same mistakes? And then how do the university students mentor kids in schools, either through math, science, whatever, motivational talks, so that whatever they know, those kids can benefit from? So the spirit of giving back or paying it forward, it resonates quite well with me. And fortunately, I've looked at people, I follow people that have a similar attitude in helping the poor, and not just the poor, in helping anyone actually, because even your own friend will have a problem and you might reach out. Even your own family would need something. But it's just important that you empower the people around you and those that you can reach out, and hopefully they will also impact other people, and then it becomes a ripple effect that it moves on and pays forward.
Whew. Let's close this, man. Otherwise, I could, you and I, we could speak for hours. And your favorites, and then we close. Your favorite book?
This tends to change for me from time to time. Every time I discover something new. So I can tell you what's still relevant for me right now. And books that had made an impact in my life, or I could resonate well with. It's not just one. So I think most people would have read the book Who Moved My Cheese. This was the first book I got when I joined Old Mutual. And it's some of the things that I do. So it's one of the things I always tell myself is, what got me here will not necessarily get me there. So you always have to evolve. And so the cheese keeps on moving. And that's what I always have to remember in my head, that the cheese needs to move, and you need to move with it. And then the other book that I love is, that spoke to me somehow, is the 48 Laws of Power. And not because I believed in the 48 Laws of Power, but I could see what I should not do when I'm in leadership. And then obviously the monk who sold his Ferrari is one book. And then locally, I like Mr. Mteto Nyati's book, Gambling with Jackie. And it speaks to me. When I joined Prudential, I was the only Black in the leadership program. And since then, people have been gambling on me. I've been put on those that I had no experience for. But people gambled on me, and it was up to me to make sure that I make it successful. And that book really speaks to me. And it doesn't help that he comes from the same region, so maybe I'm being biased, but it really speaks to me.
Yeah. Look, we will continue with the last three, favorite things. But I think if anybody, I need to ask this question too, because there are many an African child watching now. Achumile, what do you have to say? And I think you are uniquely positioned to be able to, to offer these words. What do you say to that African child in the rural Limpopo, rural Kumbu, with no Twenge accent, with no private school education, with no political connections in his family, but he wants to make an impact in the world? And there are voices that keep reminding him, hey, you are an African, nobody knows you. And but once in a while, they come across people like you who look like them, speak like them, have been through what they've been through. What can you say to that child about what is possible out there?
The funny thing is, in companies that I've worked at, people would assume things about me. They would assume my background, where I come from, and stuff like that. And when I tell them the truth, and they're like, no, it can't be.
Sure.
You did this and that. And I'm like, no, it's not. So I normal schools like those kids in Limpopo. I was in the Trustee, and I had to find my way to bigger cities and make a difference. And I knew then I need to go to the global stage. And what I always tell my people, or what I also believe in, is nothing is impossible as long as you work hard to achieve it. So there's an element of you working hard, so you can open any door. So you can find a door open, but it's up to you to go through that door. No one is going to push you through. You can even find a closed door with a key on, but it's up to you to turn that key and open that door and go through it. So there's an action expected out of you. So don't expect things on a silver platter. You've got to work hard for it, and nothing is impossible.
Thank you, man. And the friends that I keep. Thank you for that. All right, let's come back to your favorites now. Your favorite dish, meal?
So obviously I'm biased. I love South African food. So that's obvious. But then anything else I like, I actually love seafood. Oh, that's also South African. I love seafood. Only because I feel good about myself and I eat seafood because it's healthier. But also I like the French cuisine, actually. French food, I think that they've got some of the best dishes in the world. And it's one of the reasons I even moved to Ivory Coast, because then obviously it's that. So I love French food. And then African destinations, excluding South Africa again. If for your holiday, I think it will be Kenya or Tanzania, because there's the safari side and there's also the ocean side. So nature, I love that. If it's for fun and for a busy weekend or for work in Africa, it has to be Nigeria. There's energy in Nigeria, so keep me asking every time, are you sure you're not a Nigerian in your past life? I just enjoy the energy and the drive that Nigerians have, and I got to appreciate their drive when I moved to West Africa.
Thanks, man. And your favorite song? That might be a bit difficult for you. I know you love music, but hey, or a couple of songs.
I really don't. So I don't know most of the songs. So I'm a kind of boring soul and all soul. And it just depends on what I want to listen to at that point in time. So what I normally do in the mornings whenever I go to the office, I would be sitting at the back with the driver driving, and talking. It's just hi, and then I listen to gospel. I would listen to gospel because I think that sets the tough tone and the foundation for me for the day. So whatever that I'm faced with, at least I've armored myself and I'm fully covered. Then in the afternoons, obviously something more jazzy or Afro-pop, something that will lift up my spirit. I listen to those. But then if the type of artists that I follow, so I like Gregor Porter, and Shelley, Juanita Bena, Donny McClacken, Gladys Knight, Judith Kaifas, Kat Whalum. So I'm really variety. There's nothing that I could say this is. It really depends. I would walk into a room and not even know what music that is, but the sound of the band sounds nice to me, and I'll just enjoy.
Sure. And then lastly, the quote or mantra you live by, and after which I will say nothing.
So actually the quote is on my WhatsApp status. It's always there. Stolen from Madiba. I never lose. I either learn or win.
Learning
Learning
I
and
love that.
winning, no losing.
Sure. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you were as inspired and as I have been. Mark Noaila has just said hallelujah to that. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Achumile, thank you so much, Mhlabawam. I know you're very busy.
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
I
And
really
thanks for-
appreciate it.
And all the best with the real dialogue and the real village.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. With your help and everybody else that is involved behind the scenes, I'm sure we'll make it work.
Cool
Thank you
stuff.
so much, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next week, and we have a special guest next week. What makes it special is that he's joining us on his birthday. Very soon, you will know who it is that we are having. And hey, please do like our page and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Afrolog TV, where we are having this live. Thank you so much. May God bless you. All the best for this evening. Bye-bye.